Let's start with Mr. Benteke.
Yes.
He's trained this week, I assume?
He's had a couple days this week. Today was more full team training, and he's done well. So he hasn't had any issues, and we're optimistic about the weekend.
Okay. And last week it was kind of touch and go, right?
Exactly.
But in that week, since that moment,
Yeah.
I imagine that he's made a lot of.
Yeah, he was close last weekend. I mean, I think if we had another day of training, then he would have been able to travel with us. So this week it's been more progress, and he was really strong today. So we're excited to get him back, and we want to make sure we see how he comes through tomorrow, because last week, kind of out of nowhere, that's when Peglo had his injury, and thankfully with him, just moving to him, that's not quite as severe as probably we first thought. He's still a few days away to be reintegrated back into training, so it's unlikely for the weekend, Peglo.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I imagine Open Cup as well. That would be pushing it a little bit.
It may be pushing it, but there's a possibility there. I wouldn't rule that out completely. And then Dominique Badji as well. Just as we're going down the list, he came out of the game, just felt a little bit. He trained today in a lighter capacity. Again, we'll see how he comes in tomorrow, and hopefully we can get him fit for the weekend. That one's a possibility as well.
And what's his injury?
Just had a little bit of a muscle strain. Nothing that was a pull or anything like that. But he's making really good progress himself.
Okay. And Peglo was hamstring. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So quad, hamstring, and
Yeah.
muscle.
Just like a little muscular injury. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds good. How's Christian Fletcher been integrated?
Yeah, he's gotten back in for probably, I don't know, 7, 8 training sessions now. So we're starting to see him get back into our way and settle back in. Fletch always has moments that are on a high level. I mean, his talent is exceptional. And so just getting him back in the flow of things and getting him, into the consistent habits we want, this is the next step for him.
Do you see him in uniform, if not this weekend, then Open Cup?
Yeah, it's possible for both. It's possible for both. I think he's going to be in and around that conversation for the 20-man roster, and then we'll see how we come out of the weekend going into Tuesday.
Yeah. What's Baraja's standing with the team now? 'Cause he
Yeah,
hasn't
yes,
had much time.
same. He's a guy that he has really good moments. Fidel does in training, looking for a little bit more consistency, particularly against the ball. I think that's something we ask our 10s to do, and he's learning that. That's not something that's natural to him, but he can do it, and he's coming on. So he's, again, another player that's similar to Fletch in that way, where he's working to get into the squad, and that's the case for this weekend and probably Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. How, with the back line and Kai being suspended, fair to assume Connor or Massa
Yeah.
stepped in, figuring you wouldn't change your
Yeah, the structure. Yeah. I think the structure's been good. We've obviously played in the back four, and we played in the back three the last few matches, and we've had some performances that are a little bit more stable. So that's something that we want to keep trying to build on. This past weekend was a 3-0 match, and we have to own that. That's for sure. But I think if you watch the match in its entirety, it doesn't necessarily feel like a 3-0 match. Because we don't give up a lot on the day. So I think Massa and Connor Antley, they're going to be in the mix to fight this weekend for that position.
What if he travels? What would you like to see Ted back here?
Man, I can't wait to see him. He's someone that I thoroughly enjoyed working with. I want to make sure that we give him a warm welcome, because he's put a lot of time into this club. And we also, as he's going to come here and compete, if he's in the squad, we have to go and compete against someone that's not with us anymore.
Brian, want to take some from Zoom?
Yeah. Hey, Troy. We'll go to Dave Johnson.
Hey, Troy, as we talked about the broadcast and that you talked about, it was a great first half last week. The quest for consistency, it seems, where you are right now. What are the key elements to that, or how do you assess that? Because we're talking about good halves here and good halves there, but it's obviously putting it all together, if I phrase that correctly.
Yeah, man. I mean, excellent, Dave. I think the first half is something that we walk away from, and I said that after the match. We felt like, okay, we're in this game, and we've had probably the better of the chances. But in order to gain consistency in terms of results, which is what it comes down to, right? The second half wasn't good enough from us. We have to make the plays that we're creating. We're creating many plays. Not only when you're talking about goal-scoring moments, we have to finish those plays. We have to capitalize on them, but we also have to capitalize and finish plays on the defensive end. We don't allow a lot on the weekend against Philly, but they score a fantastic goal on the first goal on a set piece that's a long throw, but we can finish that play. We can finish that play in a better fashion in terms of how we step out to the ball, how we go and try to block shots. And I would say the same thing on the second goal. The play is there to be made. We're not out of sorts or anything like that. We have to go and we have to close back, and we have to also step out and win the ball. And these things are the margins we talked about a couple of weeks ago. But that's the difference between one good half and losing a match.
And then, you want player development. Jacob Merle obviously gets an opportunity for more time because of an injury, but what are you seeing from him? He's frustrated that he didn't slot it to Jared for that opportunity, and it is a game of fine margins, but yet just your assessment, he does seem like when he gets out there, he tries to make things happen.
Yeah, not only does he try to make things happen, he does. Yeah, he almost scores another really brilliant moment in the overhead kick that he has that just goes over the goal. He's there to make a play with Jared, as you pointed out, but then also the work that he does against the ball for us and what I talked about earlier with our 10s and what we demand out of those guys, they make the opponent's defenders uncomfortable, and Jacob's really good at that. That's a talent of his. So his development has been fantastic over the first year and a few months, and there's more to come from him because he's a really, really talented young player.
Next, we'll go to Bruce Murray.
Hey, Troy, thanks for your time. Where I sat the other day, I couldn't believe. I thought it was our best half of the year, and then it kind of went south, as you said, in the second half. How close are we to putting the whole thing together, and how does that message, get relayed to the players in terms of, stay positive, because you can go on a 2 or 3 run heater and be right back in it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're in a position right now where 2 weeks ago, I think we're building that momentum, and then more momentum is built in the first half. And we don't capitalize, as I said to Dave a few minutes ago, we don't capitalize on the moments that we create. And, this is, we do have to stay positive in some regard about some of the output that we're seeing. But then on the other hand, we have to say, we have to go and finish the job. We have to finish these plays, and we have to ultimately go and get 3 points, because a first half here, a first half there, and a good performance one week and not getting the result the next week. This is we have to meet that head on, and we have to make sure to tighten up in these areas. And this is many of these things we're working on in training this week, because that's our job. That's the only way that we can go and correct it, is by working every single day within our process.
And then a follow-up real quick. What's it going to be like? Your friends, where you started, Charleston Battery. It's got to be a big night on Tuesday.
Well, I'm looking forward to maybe a question or two from Andrew Miller. I see he's joining us, and Andrew's covered the game for as long as I've known out of Charleston, for the Post and Courier, that is. And, Charleston's a special place for not only me but my family, and I'm very much looking forward to that match. But my full attention right now is on Colorado, because we need another result in the league. We need a win in the league before we can talk about anything on Tuesday.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Donald Wine.
Thank you. Hey, Troy. Dave actually took my main question about the consistency and kind of what the components are about getting back to that. But following up on your answer, a lot of coaches obviously want to control the pace of the game, and it feels at times that you're able to do that, and it feels at times that it becomes kind of a track meet. What have you seen about how your team has been controlling the pace, and is that lending itself to some of the inconsistent play?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great observation. And what I would say to that is that the pace of the game over the course of probably the last 3 weeks is much more in line with what we desire. We haven't, I don't think that we have seen the game be as open as it was in some matches. We know we want to be an aggressive team. We want to try to go and make the opponent uncomfortable, create chances, and off of the chaos that we ultimately have every single match. We work in that chaos every day. And then whenever we're in on-ball moments, we want to have the same level of intensity with the way that we attack. But I think we've been really consistent in terms of how we've dictated the pace of the matches that we've played in over the course of the last 4 weeks really. And that's something that will allow us to see more results. I believe that.
And when you say that teams have really, kind of bogged down the game at times, is that how teams are kind of playing you that you've seen? And if so,
no, it's what we create. I mean, if you look at, we're probably one of the teams in the league that the ball is out of play more than any other team, because we disrupt the game so much in terms of how we press and the intensity that we play at. So this is part of what our game model is and what our style of play is. And this is it's been more in line with what we want, I think, in the last few weeks.
Great. Thank you, Trey.
Next, we'll go to Andrew Miller.
Hey, Troy, you've been on kind of both ends, or are you going to be on both ends of the rivalry with the Battery? Just talk about kind of how the mentality is, because you've seen it from the Battery side, how they approach it, and then how you approach it as the DC United now coach.
Yeah, thank you for that, Andrew. I mean, what I would say is I don't want to speak by any means for those that are at the Battery right now and Ben Pierman, because, man, I have so much respect for what he's done for that club in the last couple of seasons, really since he's arrived, and how I know he's going to prepare his team coming into Tuesday's match. From my standpoint, I experienced as a fan, so, in '99 I was ready to go see that match at Blackbaud Stadium whenever DC United came into town, because DC United at that time was the club, and that's what we're trying to get the club back to now, is that type of standard. But I can remember as a fan what it felt like whenever Goliath is coming to town, and that's what DC United was, and that's what we want them to be again. And the Battery went toe to toe and ended up winning 4-3 in that situation. I can remember what it was like to be a player in Open Cup scenarios in the second division with the Battery, and how special that feels to be able to test yourself against the first division and better players. And then at New Mexico United, I'll never forget the first couple results we had versus Phoenix and then versus Colorado Springs, to then get that opportunity to play against the Colorado Rapids, and what that meant for being able to establish some credibility for New Mexico United in our club. So it's really a special time it's a special competition. But from our standpoint at DC United now, to get back to what I was saying about trying to be that club that sets the standard for the MLS. DC United has done that for so many years, and we're trying to get back there and adding a trophy to that, and being in a competition that you can lift a trophy. In the U.S. Open Cup this season, that's something that we're going to take very seriously, and to be able to potentially win the 4th Open Cup trophy for DC United is something that I would love to add to the legacy here.
Were you around in '08? I can't remember where you were. I'm sorry.
Say again.
In '08, when they played in the finals.
2008, I was an assistant at College of Charleston, but like so many of my teammates were in that squad, so I watched that game with so much passion for not only playing for the Battery, but a number of my friends that then were on that team.
Perfect. Thanks, Troy.
All right, thanks, man.
Next, we'll go to Dennis Gomez.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Troy, for your time. Quick question. When you're preparing the training for every week by week, are you exploring the rivals' strengths and working on that, or just building off of what you've been doing, and then just maybe tweaking some of the things like the defensive pieces or the transition that you mentioned before?
Yeah, I mean, the areas that you just pointed out are certainly ones we have to look at, because that's where goals have been conceded, and defensive set pieces, and many times, not lately, but many times through our defensive transition. But we definitely focus on areas in which we have to improve, but we also continue to highlight the areas that we're having success with, and then we always take into account what the opponent does and what they're good at. We, as simple as it can be, we want to take that away, and where maybe we see some areas we can exploit, we want to work on that as well. So it's very comprehensive. It's not one way or the other.
And just a quick follow-up, how do you assess the players' progresses, and how do you provide either constructive criticism to help them improve or just become better every day?
Yeah, I mean, my approach is always to speak honestly with them, you know, and so whether it's through conversation or it's through sitting down and looking at video, my job is ultimately to get the best out of them. And if I'm not doing that, I know that. I know that a player's maybe not reaching their potential, and I want to try to do as much as I can to see them reach that. And, you know, that's my approach, is to make sure to always provide feedback that I think is constructive and is honest.